simple interest. We have covered this before. Okay, now every person, not every, teachers tend to have their own way of doing this. I'm going to tell you what my way is. Now, you may have been taught slightly differently, so I will talk to you about slightly different options, because obviously you had a different teacher last year. You didn't all have me. So, simple interest. Simple interest is not very common. Bless you. Okay. Simple interest is based on the original value that you put into an account or an original amount that you borrowed. Now, sorry, I should have sidestepped a little bit here. Do we all understand the concept of interest? Yeah. Is there anyone in here that's going, well, what the heck is interest? I'm interested in something, but what's interest when it comes to that? All right, so interest. Interest is money that either someone pays you or that you pay someone, usually involving money. So, for example, Hannah, I might say to you, may I borrow $10 from you? Okay? And you say, sure, but if I loan you $10, then I'm going to want 10% interest. And that means that because you've loaned me some money because I need it right now, that you're going to get some benefit back. So you're going to get your $10 plus 10%. Okay? So it's in addition to an amount. Yeah?
Oh, sorry.
Got your hand up.
Is it kind of the ARC thing? Like where businesses come in and they say, oh, I want this much money, and you get 10%. Is that simple interest?
No, because that's more that any profits made, they take that percentage of the amount. So that's slightly different. So this is literally a gift, if you like. So banks used to offer quite a lot of interest. So it would be, come and put your money in my bank, and I will pay you 5%. So if you put some money in the account, they're going to pay you 5% of however much you put in, just for choosing their bank. Okay. Now, interest rates have plummeted over the years now, and they are very, very low. So it's actually not really an enticement to put your money into places now. But basically, it's a gift or a fee, if you like. So that's the thing. So if you're borrowing money, so as I said, I may not be able to afford something. I need to borrow some money, so I would pay back for your money I borrowed plus interest. Okay? Is that okay? Everyone happy with that?
Yes.
So, I've said here is the money that the bank pays as a reward for you putting that money into the bank. It could be, as I say, money that you have to give someone for having borrowed money from them. So, simple interest, as I said, not very common, okay? But what it is, it's based on the original amount of money that you've put somewhere or the money that you've borrowed. So, the amount of interest each year does not change. So, if you borrowed $10 and you were charged 10% interest, what's 10% of 10? 1. Okay, so that would mean that if you borrowed $10 and you kept that $10 for 5 years, okay, you would have to pay back 5 lots of $1.
$5.
Okay, so you would end up paying back $15. Does that make sense?
You have to pay back the
You
original
have to pay back
amount.
the original amount plus the interest. All right, so how do we calculate interest? So this is how I would say. So the interest, so this is just the interest, is equal to the principal amount invested multiplied by the rate of interest multiplied by the time period in years divided by 100. Okay? Now, those letters that I've put here, I've just written them next to each other. What is happening to these numbers here when they're next to each other? Imani? So they're multiplied. Okay, so we don't need to write the multiply sign because we know that when letters are next to each other in algebra, they're being multiplied. Now, a list here of all of those things I just said, the I, the P, the R, and the T are all written here. Now, if you came from a different teacher last year, you may have been taught that I is just PRT. Is that the case?
I don't even remember that. I don't remember PRT.
All right.
Yeah.
If The difference here is that if you've been taught this, I've said that my R is the rate of interest as a percentage. So I've said if it's 5%, you write 5. If it's 2.7%, you write 2.7. Okay? If you've been taught this, then your R would be the decimal value. So for example, if it was 8%, it would be 0.08. Okay? If it was 2.5%, it would be 0.025. Okay? So if you're just using this method, you change your percentage to be a decimal value. Okay? So we remember that percentages and decimals are related because we divide them by 100. Yes? So I've chosen to keep it as just the actual rate, but that's where this bit comes in, because I keep my divide by 100 in my formula. Okay? For this method, they do the dividing by 100 before you start. Okay? So I don't mind which of these two you use, as long as you don't write this as a decimal and then also divide by 100. Okay? Or keep this as the percentage and not divide by 100. Okay? So you can't make sure you don't double up or miss the step.
Do we put the percent sign with the percentage?
No, you don't. Okay? So you're just literally putting the numbers. Now, as I've said, this formula here calculates just the interest. Some of the questions you get given or asked, you have to read them carefully. Sometimes they will ask you, what is the interest? It's just a matter of chucking these numbers into the calculator and working them out. Okay? Sometimes they may say, how much money do you now have? Or how much money do you have to pay back? And in those cases, you're going to work out what your interest is, just like this, and then you're going to have to add it to the original value. So it's super important that you read the question carefully as to which step they want. Do they want you to stop here, or do they want you to go one step further? All right, let's do some examples of this. So how much interest is earned when $3,000 is placed in an account earning 2.8% interest? Now, often you will see this little thing here, PA. Do we know what that stands for? I know I've written per year, but do we know what the P and the A are? Natasha?
Per annual,
Almost.
And is a U at the end? And
Not quite. There is a U in the word. Indigo?
per annum.
Per annum. Okay? You were very close. So this stands for per annum. And press Dr. C when you track to it. Okay, so per annum means per year. Okay, so if you see PA, it does mean the personal assistant. They're talking about per year. Okay, so what we're going to do is we need to identify each letter. So we know that we've got an I, P, R, and T. Yes, that's what our formula involves. Which one of these four are we trying to find? Which one are we trying to calculate? The interest. So I'm going to put a question mark next to that one because that's the one I don't know. Okay. Then I'm going to write down or fill in the other values. So what's my P? P stood for principal amount. And square?
3,000?
Yep, 3,000. You happy with that? That's the amount of money we're putting in there?
Yeah.
What's R? Someone other than M squared. Surely you can all read. I might. 2.8. Okay, we don't need the percent sign. We can just write 2.8. Any other?
T is 5 years.
Good. T is 5. So I can just put the number in. Okay, so now I'm going to put my things into my formula where they should go. So the I was the one we don't know, so I can keep it as I. And then 3,000 multiplied by 2.8 multiplied by 5 over 100.
Always put all that in there.
So that's what I was saying. Yes, in my method, because I keep this as 2.8. okay? Because it's a percentage.
Change it.
But if you change that to be 0.028, then it would still be divided by 100. So that's
Oh, but it's not gonna be always. It's not like putting it over 1,000.
correct, yeah, it's always 100. Okay, and then we just chuck that in our counts. Do I have some speedy calculating people?
420.
420, thank you.
I got
Okay, this is awkward. You got different answers?
Yeah, I got 422.
What do you get, M squared? Something completely different.
300 times 2.
3,000.
I got 420.
And it's 6.
420?
Yeah.
Wait, could
Hang on a second.
you just take off 2 of the zeros on
I
the...
got 420
Yeah,
so
I did too.
420. Yes, so Sienna, you could simplify it by doing that and have 30 times 2.8 times 5. Totally you could. Either way, you're still probably using your calculator to do it. Okay?
And the circles will be dollars.
Yes. Now, that's a good question. So for these kinds of questions, they'll always be dollars. What am I saying? There'll always be dollars. Or other monetary symbol. Okay, so obviously, if it was in Japan, it would be the yen. Okay, if it would be in Europe, it would be the euro. If it was in England, it would be the pound. So just be aware that there are other currencies, but this question happens to be dollars. Okay, so that means that if this bank had offered 2.8% interest, which doesn't sound that much, does it? 2.8%. But if you put $3,000 in there for 5 years, 5 years again, whilst maybe to you that sounds like a long time, in the grand scheme of things, not really. You've earned yourself $420 for doing absolutely nothing. Okay? That's pretty good, eh? And so that's what interest is all about. However, if you had borrowed $3,000 and they were asking for 2.8% interest and you couldn't pay it back before the 5 years was up, you'd have to pay an additional $420. Okay, so that again, it's encouraging you to make sure that you're paying it back sooner because you're not having as long a time period then. Emily?
What do you mean by in a period of time if you don't do something you have to pay for the 20?
So if like I borrowed from Hannah now, I borrowed $3,000. She's like, right, I'm going to charge you 2.8% interest. You're my teacher. I like you. That's not very much. And I think, oh, great, I've got a good deal here because I need this $3,000 right now. Okay, but I know that I'm not going to be able to pay it back for 5 years. Okay, so Hannah's going to be without her money, her $3,000 for 5 years. And so when I finally get round to paying her back after 5 years, I have to pay her back the $3,000 I borrowed plus $420. Okay, so Hannah has done well because she's like, well, I didn't need the money. I'm good. I managed to cope without it, but I've made myself $420. So if I was struggling, and then I would say, okay, well, I can't afford to wait. Like I'm going to need to try and pay it back sooner, so that I'm reducing this amount. So that I'm not multiplying it by 5 here, I'm multiplying it back perhaps by 2, so trying to pay it back in 2 years.
So if you pay it, do you always have to pay
Interest?
interest?
Yes. Very, very few places are going to offer you to loan you money without asking you for interest. Now your parents, different matter. They may not charge you interest, but they might. They might try and start teaching you and say, okay, yeah, sure, I'll let you buy that item, but you're going to pay me interest for it. So it's like, so you have to weigh up whether you really need it. So, for example, when I first got to the island, I wasn't enjoying getting wet on the scooter. I was like, no, I don't enjoy this. I get to school and I'm all soggy. So I was like, I want to buy a car, but I didn't have any money. So I borrowed some money from the bank. So I had to borrow some money, and then I had to pay back loads more. But to me, it was worth paying them extra money so that I could stay dry and drive around in a car, rather than get wet all the time. So you weigh up, is it worth you paying interest for something because you need it right now?
Isn't the money from the bank your money?
Not always, no. So as I say, so for example, people buy houses. Okay, that's a specific type of borrowing. That's called a mortgage. So most people especially in Bermuda, I imagine, don't have $1 million just hanging around in their own bank account to go and go, yes, I'll buy that house. Okay?
sir.
So what you have to do is you say, okay, I'd like to borrow some money from you. So secretly the bank essentially own the house because they loaned you the money, but you're paying them an annual fee for your mortgage. And then once you've got to a certain point, you've paid that off, then the house is yours. Okay? But they're not going to say, right, I'll loan you $1 million and you just pay me back $1 million, because it's going to probably take your time to pay that off.
Then you have to pay.
So you have to pay that more. And so that's where the mortgage, so you often hear that things like mortgage rates. And like, so you're going to go to a place that has a lower rate because you don't want to pay as much.
Isn't that called interest?
Yeah, that's the topic we're doing. Sometimes I wonder. Here we are.
So, like, when people don't pay back the bank, do the bank, like, evict them from the house? Or
They have to, yeah.
Is that, like, how, like, the big markets crash because people don't pay back?
So I think, see, now we're getting into very business chat, and Miss Jenkins or Miss Bishop probably better people to talk about it, but I believe that it's the case. So it gets to the point where sometimes people are like, yeah, borrow money, and so everyone's borrowing loads of money, and they're like having their life of Riley, and they're enjoying themselves, but secretly they just keep borrowing money. And things like credit cards, some people go into financial debt because they'll just get a different credit card from someone else, and so they owe these people $5,000, and these people $8,000, and these people $2,000, and then they're like, ooh, and they can't pay all their money back, and so then there's a problem. And so, but if people keep loaning people money and there's no money to pay it back, then obviously things are going to start to happen in the world. Okay? Oh gosh, that was good conversation.
So this is how you lay him all out all the time.
So this is going to be your setup all the time. So you're going to look at all the 4 things. So there's always going to be 4 parts to your information that you're given. Now, you're not always going to be asked to find the interest. Sometimes you might be asked to find the rate. Okay? Sometimes you might be asked to find the principal amount. So it's one of these 4 that's going to have the question mark next to it. And I'll show you about the rearranging in a second.
Quick question. So, like, when you do, this is related. So, when you're on, like, the computer, how do you type, like, how do you make the
To make it like a fraction.
You just press divide by
That's
100.
not relative at all. I'll show you in a minute, but not now. Right, okay, so here's another example. How much interest is earned when $120 is placed in an account, earning 5.3% interest if it's been there for 4 years? Okay, so this one, it is another interest. So we've got I, that's the thing we're trying to find. P, Sarah, what's our P in this question?
Your P is, where is it, 5, no, that's the R side, 120.
Awesome. And R in this question, Hannah FL.
5.3.
Lovely. And T, I put little t, can be little or big, sorry. Emily?
4.
Lovely. And then we're just literally going to stick it in as we did. So I equals P R T over 100. Yes, and squared?
25.44.
0.44. All happy with that?
Yeah.
We all agree?
That's really easy.
So how do we always round our answers here?
3, 6,
Not in these cases, no. Amy?
2 decimal places.
2 decimal places, good. Oh,
Oh, wait,
it's in red, just underneath it.
and I
This is so funny.
read that too.
So I'm doing this thinking, I must make sure that to remind them to round to 2 decimal places, and obviously I knew that this was here. So always 2 decimal places because it's money. Okay?
Does that one have to be in dollars as well?
No. Yes. What do you mean no?
Can you go up a little bit?
Do you mean back?
It's ironic you're writing Christmas colors.
Yeah.
I don't really get much choice. I've just got to see it.
15 more days.
All right, next one. So how much money needs to be invested? Okay, so again, we've got I, P, R, T. Okay, so we're going to write IPRT at the top all the time. So how much money needs to be invested? So what are we trying to find here? How much money needs to be invested? Which one's missing? Hannah, Raphael?
The principal.
Good, the principal amount. So that's where I'm going to put my question mark. Okay? If you wish to put a letter or keep it as P, that's totally fine. Okay? But I'm just going to put a question mark for now. So it says, if an account is offering 4.8% interest, where does the 4.8 go, Vintage?
It would go to I.
No.
Oh.
Imani?
To R.
Ah, good. That's the rate of interest, isn't it? 4.8. Okay? What's the next piece of information we've got, Maya?
5 years.
5 years. Where's that go? T. Okay, so that goes going to go here. And it says $80 interest. Abby?
$80 goes with I.
Good. All happy with that?
Yes.
All right, so this is where the fun comes in, and we've got to make sure that you're comfortable with rearranging stuff. So we're going to put those numbers in where the letters go. So we're not going to change the position of the letters, we're just going to stick the numbers where they should go. So 80 equals. Now, I'm going to keep it as a big P. You all happy with that? So P multiplied by 4 multiplied by 4.8 multiplied by 5 over 100. Now, there are many, many different ways of rearranging this to find P, okay? Now, I want you to find the way that you are most comfortable. What you have to remember is that we're trying to isolate or get P on its own. At the moment, P is being multiplied by both of these two things and then dividing by 100, okay? So I'm going to pause this. I want you to rearrange that on your own to try and tell me what the answer is, and perhaps do it in pencil if you're not confident, and then we'll go through it here. Remember that it may be an idea to actually work out what these things are before you do too much rearranging, but it's totally up to you. Okay, so I'm going to pause it. All right, so this is where our skill at rearranging comes in. As I said to you, I want you to always look to see, does it make sense? Does your answer make sense? Now, I know a lot of you, or not a lot, a few of you had a value of around $19. Okay, so you have to say to yourself, hang on a minute, I'm investing $19, okay, $20. I'm putting in $20 into this account. They're paying me 4.8% interest, so 5% interest, let's use, for 5 years. Is that going to amount to $80?
No.
Does that seem sensible? No. So our principal amount has to be bigger than $20. Okay, if they're going to give us 80, or if we got $80, I want to go to this bank because that's blooming good. Okay, you're not going to get that much money if you're only investing $20. So the amount that you put in has to be bigger. So this is probably how I would rearrange this. So I would actually work out or calculate the value of 4.8 times 5.
24. No, not including the 0.24 if you put it over 100.
So I've got 80 equals P times 24 over 100. Okay?
I didn't do it like
Wait, is that what
I
you're supposed
did
to
it
do
like
times 5?
Yep.
Yeah, that's always.
All right, so this, as I said, this is how I would do it. There are different ways, and you may have the right answer. I'm not saying you've done it wrong. We then have to remember our rules of solving equations, because that's what we're doing. We're solving an equation. We've got one unknown thing. What's the first thing that I need to do to get to try and isolate my P, Sarah?
The 24 and 80.
Pardon?
Oh, never mind.
Okay, I'm remembering trying to get my P on its own. Vintage?
You divide, well, after you divide 100.
I'm not going to do, I want to get my P on its own. So what can I do? Alright, what did you do then? Tell me what you did.
Well, I kind of did it wrong because I just moved the P on it.
Talk to me.
I moved the P on it and
Okay. Well, that's what we have to do eventually. But so what can I do first? Yeah.
3 times the 24.
I would suggest not yet. No, because look, my division here goes underneath both of these two things. Hannah?
Would you times the 100 to get rid of the dividing?
Good. I would multiply both sides by 100. Okay? So if I do that, that means that this one's gone. Yes? And I've got 100 times 80. Now, we don't need a calculator for 100 times 80. Because if we times anything by 100, what do we do? Yeah. Did you use calculator?
No, 8,000. I just did that.
Okay, so we've got to add 2 zeros. So that's going to give us P times 24.
8,000 has 3 zeros.
So how do we get P on its own now?
Divide by
Sarah?
You divide
By?
by 24.
Good, so we're going to divide both sides by 24. That's gone. And so P is equal to 8,000 divided by 24, which is
333.
3.3.
Oh my god, I got that.
Wait, go, George.
Did not get that.
Oh, so if
Alright, shh, Hannah, you had a question? Or you would tell me it was 333.33. Okay? Now, if you got that value in a slightly different way, totally fine, okay? As I said, I don't mind how you got it. There are different ways. You could have done the 24 divided by 100, and so here, we could have said that 80 was equal to P multiplied by 0 to, oh sugar, what's going on with my board? Would be P multiplied by 0.24, oh my giddy aunt, okay? And so that was actually doing this division here, and then you would have said that P was 80 divided by 0.24, and you get the same answer. Okay, so there's a few different ways of doing it, but however you're doing it, you're isolating or getting rid of everything else and leaving P on its own. But you must always remember the order of operations, and you're undoing those things in the opposite order from the order of operation. Okay? So what rate of interest? So again, new question. I'm going to write I equals P R T. Okay, so we've got our 4 letters. We're going to fill in what we need. What rate of interest? So what are we trying to find here? Sometimes this is the hardest thing to establish. Any other? What are we trying to find here?
the rate of interest. So
Okay, so I'm going to put a question mark. Oh, sugar. Yeah, here. Okay, that's a question mark. Amber, can you tell me a piece of information and where to put it? So look at the question. Pick something. There's a few bits of information there. Just tell me something. Where should I write
So,
it?
the 8 years.
8 years. Where's that going to go?
So, 15.
Okay, so 8 goes there. Hannah FL.
The principal 2,400.
Lovely. And Sarah?
That's, that, I'm just like, establishing something. But I got a question.
Yes. We need to pay attention, sweetheart. I said that.
And also, for answering the question, I is 100. Right?
I is 100 lovely. Now, sometimes people look at these things and jump on a number and put it in the wrong place. Okay? It may be worth you doing, as I've said here, write the 4 letters and then pick out things that hopefully are more obvious than others. I think Amber was all excited she got to go first. She was like, oh, excellent, that 8 years, that's the easiest one. I know that that's the time. Yes? So the 8 goes there. Okay? The biggest number is more likely to be your principal amount. Okay? So we put that one in there. Has to leave the $100 as our interest. Okay, so if you're not crash hot at reading questions too carefully, don't jump into your formula straight away. Consider doing this and consider filling things in the order that makes you feel more comfortable, okay? You don't have to just read it, and because that's more likely to be where you're going to perhaps put things in the wrong place. Abby?
For the question that we just did above, I don't understand like the part where you had to times each side by 100. Like I don't understand. Could you scroll up just a little? Thank you. I don't understand when you had to times each side by 100. What on to the right? What were you timesing by 100?
I'm really sorry. So I had this part here, and I had to get rid of the divide by 100. So we know that we do the opposite operation. So we multiply by 100 and multiply by 100. And so these two cancel each other out.
Okay. Okay, but what were you timesing by 100 when to the left when you got it to cancel out?
80. What do you
No.
mean to the left?
Oh, the other side, sorry, to the right.
This. P times 24 and 4. I'll have to help you anyway, sweetheart. I don't want to confuse other people because that's a different question, okay? Have you got this one? Have you got this one? Leave that blank and I'll go through it with you individually afterwards, okay? All right, so we've got our things here. So now we're going to stick them into the right position. So what are we going to actually write? Kelsey.
So 100 equals 2,400 times R, which is the question, and then times that by 8 over 100.
Lovely. Okay. You will probably, or more likely, get at least 1 mark by doing that. Okay. You have inputted everything into the correct position into the formula.
Is that what you have to do to show your working?
That should be sufficient. Yes. However, we want to make sure that we can do this. Anyway, yes. Okay, so what do you want to do next, Elizabeth?
So you do 2,400 times 8.
Lovely. Okay. Now, is everyone comfortable that we've got these 3 things are all being multiplied? And we remember that the order that we multiply is not important. So n squared wants to do this 2,004 multiplied by 8. Okay, you all happy with that?
Yes, 190.
Okay, so we've got 100 equals, pardon, what is it?
19,200 times.
Over.
Okay, so I put it in green to show where we've got that from. Okay? So now we've got 19200 multiplied by r divided by 100 equals 100. Okay? So Amy, what am I going to do next? Oh, actually, I'm sure you know the answer. Abby, what am I going to do next? This is my statement. I've got 100 equals this divided by 100. And I need to try and find that r. What am I going to do first?
Times each side by 100.
Good. So when I multiply this side by 100, I'm going to multiply this side by 100. What happens over here? What on the right hand side, Abby?
100 cancel out.
Lovely. Now I'm just going to sidestep. That's what we did up above, sweetheart. Do you understand that now?
Or you put like another. I'll explain it to you later.
Okay.
I understand it. I just like have a question about it.
Brought to that. Okay. So 100 times 100, that's going to be 10,000, yes? And so I did that without my calculator because I'm very good at maths. And I can do 100 times 100 without it. We know it's 1 and 4 zeros. Okay. We need to find r on its own, though, Indigo.
Then you do 10,000
Yep.
divided by
1920.
Good, so we're going to divide both sides by 19200. Whoops, too many zeros in section. So that cancels. And what is 10,000 divided by 19200? 0.52 equals R. Now, at this point, you might go, that can't be a decimal. Can it be a decimal? Can rates be a decimal?
You
It can totally be a decimal.
just
answer it first, and then I erased it because it didn't look right.
Miss Harrison, isn't that just 52%?
Yeah.
Well, no, so this is where we've got to be careful.
Because we divided by
Because whenever we're inputting our numbers, do we change them? This actually represents 4.8%, okay? So when we are doing this, because we have this divided by 100 here, this is actually, R is 0.52%, okay? So you must put your percent sign next to it, all right? But that's a good question, M squared, because lots of people would then think, oh no, that's way more, okay? And I would again, I want to stress, and you're probably going to get really bored of me saying it, but it's so important to have a look to see if it makes sense. You've invested quite a lot of money here, 2,400, for quite a long time, 8 years. We've only made $100, okay? So in that situation, it indicates that my rate is not going to be a big number, okay? So that's where you say to yourself, ooh, have I done it right? Have I got the decimal point in the wrong place? Would it be 52%? Is it 5.2%? But that's going to help you try and decide if it looks kind of right or not.
Why does when it does 100 times that 100, does it cancel out that 100 becomes 10,000? Is it because it's 100 times 100 divided by 100?
On this side, do you mean? Because this is 100 over 1, right?
Oh yeah.
So it's still a whole number. Whereas this one was divided by 100, so that's why we multiplied to get rid of it. Does that help? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we good? All right. Oh my gosh, that was a lot of talking, but I think some good conversations came out there, ladies.